Now, what does writing your own story really mean, and why is it so important? Well, did you know that the Latin root of the word authenticity is author? And so to write your own story means to be the authentic author of your life. This includes knowing and living true to your highest values and continuing to do so when you experience adversity or hit crossroads in life. It means to live on your own terms in consideration of your needs and desires. In other words, to own it and to intentionally make decisions that steer your life in whatever direction you choose. It means chasing your dreams and doing what you love and what makes you happy. You're in the driver's seat. So, why is writing your own story so important? Well, as Maya Angelou once said, there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you. And so, if you are not writing your own story, then you are simply a character in somebody else's story. And sure, there's nothing wrong with doing this, but it does lead to a mediocre life, one with less motivation, less happiness, and increased stress. If, on the other hand, you want to live a happy and fulfilling life, then you need to write your own story, okay? Whether you want to live a simple life or a more exhilarating one, doesn't matter. What matters is that you live the life you want to live. Writing your own story makes you feel empowered because you are standing in your own power, in control of what you do and what you want in life. Writing your own story gives you a sense of purpose. And we all know that the best stories are the ones with purpose. It's how I live my life every day. When you do what you love, you have so much more gratitude and you achieve so much more in your life. Writing your own story and chasing your dreams lights a fire in your heart. And whether you reach it or not, it warms everyone and everything around you. Think about it. Wouldn't the world be a better place if we were all inspired, if we all chased our dreams? I know I feel inspired chasing my dreams. Most importantly, writing your own story makes you feel happy, and you really can't put a price on that. So, as you can see, like all attributes of living true, writing your own story plays an essential role in the prevention of stress in our life, which, according to research, is a major contributing factor in anything from anxiety and depression to obesity and cancer. And so if we truly want to be healthier and live happier lives, then we must write our own story, because at the end of the day, most stress comes from doing things that we don't really want to do. So how do we go about doing that exactly? Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is to be careful not to let others write your story. In other words, if you don't write your own story, then others will simply write it for you. And if you were to look back upon your story thus far today, you would likely find that part of your story comes from your own choices, but part of it also comes from your environment too. Namely, via the projection of others. Often this starts at birth with our parents and siblings. Well, in fact, so much of this influence is actually unspoken, meaning that the influence is subtle yet very powerful through their values, including the way they behave and live their life. And so as we grow, the circle of influence extends to our relatives, our friends, our teachers, our workmates, etc., etc. Regardless of who it is, all of these people can affect both how you perceive and interact with the world, including how you write your own story. From a young age, parents probably have the biggest influence on the outcome of your story, because from a young age, your values are so heavily influenced by their own. However, although it's often always from good intentions, if you're not careful, then it's easy to let them or anyone else write your story, and especially so if you look up to them. And this isn't a bad thing if you're happy with the story they have helped you write. However, it's just that sometimes they just lay out quite a narrow path for you, for your success, and they can make you feel like if you don't go down that path, you'll be a failure. It's one thing to take advice from others, but it's another thing altogether to live your life the way they want you to live it. Sometimes if we're not careful, we can let others influence our story more than we know. So it's important that you haven't sold out on your dreams in order to make those whom you love and respect happy. And remember to always surround yourself with those who are supportive of your dreams. So the question you need to ask yourself here is, who, if anyone, has an influence on writing your story, and in what way? The next thing you need to do is to listen to your intuition. Ultimately, the key to writing your own story is to take the time to reflect on what you really want to do and what you really want from life, and then take positive steps towards it. Obviously, this is never one thing, because there are many things you can do, right? But the key is to listen to your heart and follow your intuition, otherwise known as your internal GPS. And you can do this by tuning in and going with your gut in all areas of your life. Remember that although the feeling originates in our heart, it is actually felt in our gut. So if the decision that you're about to make feels heavy in your gut, then there's a very good chance that it's not coming from your heart. You know, as children, we all had dreams, but sadly, many of us have forgotten about them along the way. So when you can, I'd like you to take a moment to reflect on what you really want by asking yourself these questions, okay? So these include, what would my 5-year-old self tell me it wants to do? What makes me tick, and what is it that I absolutely love? What do I really want from life, and what does success really mean to me? And finally, if I could live my life over again, would I do anything differently? So once you decide what you want from life, then chase it. Dreams need to be acted upon in order to become reality. Next, it's essential to believe in yourself. Many of us never write our own story simply because we don't believe in ourselves. What do you believe about the things you want? I ask this because life doesn't give you what you want, life gives you what you believe. So think about what you want, and then think about what you believe, and then your job is to line them up. You will always get what you want if you believe it enough. So believe in and back yourself 110%. Next, it's really important to step out of your comfort zone, okay? It's pretty easy to grow up and put your passions aside to take a job that you really don't mind doing and raise some kids that will most likely be inspired to do the same thing, going from point A to point B to point C. There's nothing wrong or nothing bad about that, But there's nothing great and nothing inspiring about that either. It's much safer in life to do what's in common and what is expected of you rather than to go out on a whim and write it yourself. However, the reality is that everything you really want in life is usually outside of your comfort zone. Okay, so outside of it. So what you really want in life is outside of your comfort zone. And in between your comfort zone and what you really want are your fears. Okay, and you need to put your fears aside, okay, and step out. Life is pretty easy, but chasing your dreams isn't always easy. It takes a lot of courage, and you just need to take action. You need to let go of the fear of failure, okay? So take a minute to ask yourself, what fears do I need to put aside in order to write my own story and achieve true happiness in life? Next, never ever compromise who you are. We would all like to be doing exactly what we want to do in life. And you know what? For the most part, we can. However, the reality is that we all have to compromise in life. It's just a matter of how much and what. And most of us know this, and as a result, are accommodating to the needs of others. However, where some of us become undone is when we also begin to compromise on our deepest values, needs, desires, and whatever else that makes us happy. The result being that we essentially lose ourselves, or at least a large part of who we are. So ensure to never compromise on who you are and what makes you tick. Spend some time thinking about who or what is preventing you from writing your own story. And what do you need to do to say, or what you need to do in order to ensure that you write your own story? Have a think about that. And finally, the last thing you need to ensure that you do is not to leave it too late. People often tell me, someday I'll write a book, someday I'll travel the world, someday I'll do this or that. The only problem with this is that someday isn't on the calendar, and you'll never be as young as you are today to fulfill your dreams and do the things that you really want to do in life. So don't waste another moment. Start writing your own story from today. Look, remember, it's your story, your destiny, your life. If you own a story, then you can write the ending. You and the story you write are a contribution to the world, so make it count. So my question to you is, are you writing your own story, or are you following other people's story? Are you living the dream, your dream? Or are you just plodding through life according to other people's wants, desires, expectations, and dreams? Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to learn more about the other essential attributes of staying in your best shape. And until next time, watch what you chew, do what you need to do, and always live true.